I had a young lady who called me from Massachusetts the other day, and I knew when I saw her on the screen, this will not be a walk in the park. It never is when somebody calls from Massachusetts. For some reason, it's Massachusetts and Cleveland, Ohio callers that are always very edgy, very provocative. Nothing wrong with that. I like provocation. I like exchanges. I like debate. It's okay. But the young lady was she was very direct. She said, all the experts, all the scientists, the whole medical world knows that the practicing of social distancing has really worked. When you're out in public 6 feet away, it works. You keep a mask on, you wear gloves, you wear whatever, you wear a spacesuit. It all works. That's what we need to do. So imagine the surprise of Governor Andrew Cuomo when he revealed a new study. These are statistics that have been ascertained, and he released it during his press conference yesterday, revealing a bombshell. Are you ready for this? Before they analyzed the hospitalized patients in New York, Cuomo kind of assumed that all the social distancing guidelines and the people were out and about and people were getting sick when they were out and they were touching subways and they were breathing on each other. Well, there's a bit of a problem with that idea. Let's listen together to the surprise that Governor Cuomo exhibited when he learned about some new statistics that he wanted to share with the world during yesterday's press conference in New York.
This is a surprise. Overwhelmingly, the people were at home, where there's been a lot of speculation about this. A lot of people, again, had opinions. A lot of people have been arguing where they come from and where we should be focusing. But if you notice, 18% of the people came from nursing homes. Less than 1% came from jail or prison. 2% came from the homeless population, 2% from other congregate facilities. But 66% of the people were at home, which is shocking to us. Disproportionately older. But by the way, older starts at 51 years old.
Watch yourself there, Skippy. Older is not 51 years old. But isn't that interesting? So let's just kind of dive into this for a little bit. So 66% of people who wound up in the hospital with a severe illness of coronavirus, they had been isolated and they had been in their home. Pretty shocking. You see, the governor had previously guessed that they got infected when they were taking public transportation. That's why he's now sanitizing all the subway cars and buses regularly. That's something that should have been done, I don't know, about 100 years ago, but they just now got around to that. Cleaning the subways. What a concept. What a wild idea. Clean the subways every night and the buses. Oh my gosh, they've gone crazy in New York. Sanitizing subways? Why would you do that? Come on. Let's get our hands as dirty as they can. Holding on for dear life while being crushed up against 97 other people, except when the singers and the panhandlers come parading through and put down their boom boxes and want you to give them money because they're going to sing from the Temptations or the Four Seasons. Only 4% of the people who wound up in the hospital had been taking public transportation. Most of them didn't leave the home at all. 84% were at home. Cuomo said, were they working? No. Only 17% were working. In other words, do you understand what's being done here? The vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people in New York who wound up in the hospital came from being home. They were home, staying away from people. They weren't working. They weren't traveling. They weren't on buses. They weren't on subways. They weren't in the parks. They weren't going. They were home. In other words, they were the ultimate isolation patients. And 66% of them went into the hospital. I saw a doctor the other day on another show give an extraordinary statistic. He said 95% of New York hospital deaths have been people from coronavirus, have been people who are either obese, diabetic, high blood pressure, or elderly. 95%. 95%. So we're learning things about this virus. We're learning things about New York. Incidentally, this is a beaut. There were healthcare workers who flooded into New York to assist. And listen, we're lifting all the healthcare workers up. I'm a little cynical about the Blue Angels flyover, and you're gonna have to forgive me. The Blue Angels keep flying over cities. And I mean, my only problem with it is the people who come out to watch the Blue Angels are all standing shoulder to shoulder with their iPhones and their excitement, and they're all like gathering in a big crowd to watch the Blue Angels. Nobody's pointing out that there's not a whole lot of social distancing going on from the crowd, from the throngs of people who are watching the Blue Angels fly over. Listen, I love this country. I love our military. I love our infrastructure. I love our tools, our planes. I'm not really getting the whole Blue Angels flyover. I don't know what that is. How about when it's all over? I thought when de Blasio said when it's all over, when it's all said and done, we'll have a parade. And people blasted him. Why have a parade? You have a lot of people in the crowd. Well, what do you think you got when the Blue Angels are flying overhead? To see 4 specks in the sky and you're standing out there intermingling with other people, big crowd of people. I don't mean to be cranky here, but I just think it's a kind of a dumb idea, but maybe you don't. That's okay. Let me know. But I love this. The governor made it very clear that if you're a healthcare worker who went to New York to help out in the crisis they were in the midst of, you're still going to have to pay taxes there. In other words, the message is, welcome to New York, now pay your taxes. That's right. Cuomo said, we're not in a position to provide any subsidies right now. We have a deficit. There's a lot of good things we'd like to do, but not going to happen. So the state government invited thousands of people to come to New York from out of state to help fight coronavirus, according to Pix 11 TV in New York. So even though the state asked the people to come, now they're making those visitors pay New York state taxes for the time that they were working in New York. And I have a newsflash for you. They're not low, okay? City and state taxes in New York are some of the most onerous, awful taxes in the country. And incidentally, they got to pay New York taxes even on income they might make from their home states that they're paid while they're in New York. You understand, if you came from if you volunteered to go help out in New York from South Carolina, you're getting paid on you're paying state taxes to South Carolina. New York wants their cut too. I mean, unbelievable. That's the gratefulness, the level of gratefulness that Cuomo, a Democrat governor, gives to thousands of people who voluntarily came running to New York City to try to help. Ed Morrissey wrote about it over at Hot Air. No good deed goes unpunished, that's for sure. I mean, listen to this, and Ed puts it in the right perspective. Cuomo and de Blasio put out an all-points bulletin for as many volunteers as possible to boost their healthcare resources. We needed help. Thousands came in. And now that the crisis is past, Cuomo wants to give these heroes a little token of a souvenir of their time in New York, a tax bill. That's right. They're going to have to pay. Incidentally, that was news to these volunteers, including those who were at Samaritan's Purse, which set up a big temporary hospital right smack dab in Central Park. No one told them that their workers would have a tax liability that rates as one of the highest in the nation. Ken Isaacs, the vice president of Samaritan's Purse, a nonprofit organization, told Pix 11 he was shocked to learn that workers who volunteered would have to pay the state's income tax. Our financial controller called me and he said, do you know that all of you are going to be liable for New York State income tax? I said, what? The controller said, yeah, that's the law. If you work in New York State for more than 14 days, you have to pay state income tax. Now, this is going to be a nightmare for organizations and their employees as they have to deal with the mountains of bureaucracy and paperwork that comes with filing in multiple states. I know that rule. I know that world. Trust me. Trust me. So Ed Morrissey concludes over at Hot Air, this is so awful morally and politically that surely it can't be sustained, can it? Does Governor Cuomo really plan to shaft the people who came to New York's rescue just to use them as pawns in his political gamesmanship with Trump and Mitch McConnell? It's not going to build up a whole lot of goodwill outside New York for the idea of pitching in to help with their budget woes, especially when those volunteers return home to their own states to tell their neighbors what a bunch of ingrates they left behind in New York. And the next time New York asks people to volunteer in a crisis, writes Ed Morrissey, Cuomo and the rest of them had better not be surprised when all they hear in return is the chirping of crickets. We're in the ReliefFactor.com studios. Welcome in. Hope you join us here on the Mike Gallagher Show. How about your reaction to that little tidbit out of New York and this wonderful leadership of Governor Cuomo? Heaven forbid you forgive a couple of weeks of taxes for people who came and heeded your call and came because you asked them to. We're in the ReliefFactor.com studios, 1-800-655-MIKE, 800-655-6453. It's National Day of Prayer. It's a big deal for many Americans, and I have a very specific prayer that I hope you will join me with. That and more all ahead on this Thursday, May 7th edition of the Mike Gallagher Show. I'm glad you're here. 1-800-655-MIKE. We have an open line. Join us.